You don't get to say no to this family, my mother said, setting her phone down on my kitchen counter like she was placing a winning hand of cards. I already told them yes. I looked at the screen. An email, still open. Subject line, wedding order confirmation, 720 butter almond crescents. My name was on the sender line, my email address, my signature, the one I use for invoices, pasted in like it was mine. It wasn't. I never sent that email. I never said yes to anything. I told you I couldn't take this order, I said. I have 3 weddings already booked that weekend. I told you that on Tuesday. And I told the Hendersons you'd figure it out, she said. Because that's what you do. You figure it out. You always have. I want to tell you that I yelled, that I threw the phone across the room, or cried, or begged her to understand. I didn't do any of that. I just picked up the phone, read the email twice, and set it back down exactly where she'd left it. Because in that moment, I already knew something my mother didn't. I'd sold the recipe 2 weeks earlier, all of it, and she was about to find out the hard way. I'm Dana Whitfield. I'm 34, and for 6 years I've run a small home bakery out of a converted garage kitchen in Millbrook, Ohio, county licensed, insured, the whole thing. Almond crescents started as a hobby after I got laid off from a marketing job I hated. It turned into something real. Wedding orders, corporate holiday boxes, a standing Saturday morning stall at the farmer's market that sells out most weeks by 10. My younger sister Kayla, 29, started her own thing about a year after I did. A mobile coffee cart called Kayla's Cup. It's cute. It's fine. It's also never once turned a profit, according to Kayla herself, at 3 separate family dinners. My mother, Linda, has never once called what I do a real business. She calls it Dana's little baking thing. She calls Kayla's cart Kayla's venture. I've stopped correcting her. You learn, after enough years, which battles cost more than they're worth. What I never stopped noticing was the pattern. Every time Kayla needed help, a broken espresso machine, a permit fee, a slow month, my mother found the money, found the favor, found the family member willing to step in. When I needed anything, the answer was always some version of, "You're good at figuring things out on your own." I didn't mind carrying my own weight. What I minded was being expected to carry Kayla's too, without being asked, and without being paid. It started small. A dozen cupcakes here for one of Kayla's pop-up events, because it'll bring people to her cart, and it's good for you too, exposure-wise. A wedding cake, at cost, for a family friend's daughter, because Kayla had already told them I'd do it before I knew the wedding existed. Every time, my mother framed it as a favor to me, some kind of even trade, when what it actually was, my labor, my ingredients, my 40-hour weeks, funding my sister's version of success. The breaking point wasn't one incident. It was a text message, sent to a group chat with me, my mother, and Kayla, 11 months ago. My mother wrote, "Dana, can you do the cookie favors for Kayla's launch party? 200 should be plenty. You're so much faster than a bakery would be, and it saves us the cost." Saves us the cost, not saves you the trouble, us. As if my hours in a hot kitchen were a communal resource the family got to allocate. I did the 200 cookies. I told myself it was the last time. It wasn't. 6 weeks ago, I sat my mother down and told her, calmly, that I needed her to stop committing my time without asking me first. I told her about the wedding season coming up, 3 bookings already locked in for the 2nd weekend of June, each one worth more than $2,000, each one requiring 12-hour kitchen days back to back. I can't take on anything else that weekend, I said. Not for family, not for anyone. I need you to understand that's final. She nodded. She said, "Of course, I understand." She said it the exact way she says things she has no intention of honoring. 2 weeks later, the Hendersons, old family friends, the kind Linda has known since church potlucks in the 90s, asked her, in passing, whether Dana's Bakery could handle wedding favors for their daughter's ceremony. My mother didn't say she'd ask me. My mother didn't say she'd check my calendar. My mother said yes, on my behalf, using my business email, which she had access to, only because I'd once let her log a farmer's market order for me, when my hands were covered in flour and I couldn't type. She used that access to draft a full order confirmation, 600 crescents for the reception, another 120 for individuals' boxed favors, 720 cookies, due the exact weekend I'd told her, in plain language, I could not do it. She didn't tell me any of this. I found out because the Hendersons emailed to confirm delivery logistics, and the email landed in my inbox with my own signature already on the thread above it. Here's the part my mother didn't know. Standing in my kitchen with her phone out like a subpoena, 2 weeks before that confirmation email ever existed, I had already licensed the Almond Crescent's recipe and brand name to a commercial bakery in Columbus. Ridgeline Provisions, a real operation with real capacity that had been trying to buy the recipe off me for over a year because it sold out every single time I brought it to a market or a wedding tasting. I'd said no to them for a long time, mostly out of sentimentality. But somewhere between the 200 free cookies and the group text that said, "Saves us the cost," sentimentality stopped being a good enough reason to keep doing everything myself for free. The deal was straightforward. Ridgeline got the recipe, the name, and the right to produce and sell almond crescents commercially. I got a licensing fee, a small ongoing royalty, and, this part mattered most to me, the right to keep taking my own wedding bookings under a different name, on my own terms, without Ridgeline's involvement. As of the Tuesday before my mother committed me to 720 cookies, Almond Crescents as a business entity legally belonged to someone else. I hadn't told my family yet. I was planning to, once the transition was final, in my own time, in my own words. My mother's email hadn't gone to me. It had gone to an inbox I'd already handed off. Ridgeline's ops manager had seen it, assumed it was a legitimate inbound order under the brand they now owned, and, since it wasn't in their system, wasn't invoiced, wasn't anything but a stray email from a woman named Linda claiming to speak for the business, she'd forwarded it back to my personal email with one line, "Is this something we should be aware of? Doesn't look like it came through proper channels." That was the email my mother had been reading over my shoulder. Not a confirmation, a flag. I didn't explain any of this to her that afternoon in my kitchen. I let her believe, for one more day, that I would simply figure it out, the way I always had. Instead, I called the Hendersons myself that evening and told them the truth. I hadn't agreed to the order. My mother didn't have authority to speak for my business, and as of 2 weeks ago, my business, in the sense they meant it, no longer belonged to me in the way they assumed. I told them I was sorry for the confusion and that I could not personally take on 720 cookies for their daughter's wedding on 10 days' notice, but that Ridgeline Provisions, a legitimate commercial bakery, now produced the same recipe at scale, and I'd be glad to connect them if they wanted a real, properly contracted order instead of a favor extracted through my mother. They were gracious about it. Mrs. Henderson actually laughed and said, "Linda does this. She did it with the flowers for my sister's shower too." Apparently, I wasn't the only person in Millbrook who'd learned this lesson before me. I called my mother the next morning. "The Hendersons won't be getting 720 cookies from me," I said. "They were never going to. I told you 6 weeks ago I couldn't do that order, and you committed me to it anyway, using an email account that doesn't even belong to my business anymore." "What do you mean it doesn't belong to you?" She said, "It's your bakery. You started it." "I sold it," I said, 2 weeks ago. "Almond Crescents belongs to a company called Ridgeline Provisions now. I still bake, under my own name, on my own terms, for people who ask me directly, instead of finding out through a group chat that I've been volunteered." There was a long silence. "You sold it, and you didn't tell me," she said, and I could hear, under the shock, the first note of real anger. Not at what she'd done, but at what I'd done, without her knowledge or approval. "I didn't tell you," I said, "because the last 6 times I told you something about my business, you treated it as a starting point for negotiation, not a fact you needed to respect. I wasn't going to give you the chance to talk me out of protecting myself. Not this time." "This is going to embarrass the whole family," she said. "What am I supposed to tell the Hendersons?" "The truth," I said, "that you committed my time without asking me, using an account you weren't supposed to have access to, for a business that isn't yours to promise on behalf of." "I already called them last night. They already know." She didn't have anything to say to that. For the first time in longer than I can remember, my mother went quiet on a phone call with me, and stayed quiet. It's been 5 weeks since that conversation. My mother and I still talk, less often, and differently. She hasn't asked me to bake anything for Kayla since. She also hasn't apologized, not directly, though she did mention once, almost sideways, that maybe I should have checked with you first. I took it. It's more than she's given me before. The wedding season went exactly as planned. 3 bookings, 12-hour days, more money in 5 weekends than I made in 3 months at my old marketing job. Ridgeline sends me a royalty statement every quarter now, small but real, for a recipe that used to just be something I gave away when my mother asked nicely, or didn't ask at all. Last Saturday, I stood behind my market stall, new sign, new name, nothing borrowed from anyone, and sold out of a lemon thyme shortbread I've been developing since spring. A woman in line asked if I was the one who used to make the almond crescents everyone talked about. I told her yes, and that they still exist, just somewhere else now, made by people who pay for the privilege of using my name properly. She bought 2 dozen shortbreads and told me to keep the change. If you've ever had a family member volunteer your time like it belonged to them and only realized how much of yourself you'd been giving away for free once you finally said no, I'd like to hear how you found your way back to charging what you're worth. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what your version of the recipe ended up being.